Hi everyone, I'm Julia Sarju and I'm really pleased to be taking part in this equality and diversity session. I'm going to be talking to you about disability. Just before we get started, you may hear some banging or strange noises in the background. I have a teething 1-year-old, but she is okay. But it is likely there might be a little bit of background noise, so apologies for that just before we get started. Okay, so why am I talking to you about disability? Well, disabled people are one of the largest minority groups, making up 20% of the working age population in the UK. Students with declared disabilities make up approximately 10% of our UK undergraduate population, and it's really important that scientific careers are accessible to disabled people. Disability is also an example of hidden diversity that you will have probably already come across during this equality and diversity session. When we think about disabilities, 80% of disabilities are invisible, and you may have seen some of the logos shown on this slide around campus. So on the left, we have the Not All Disabilities Are Visible campaign, and this is particularly important to make sure that individuals with disabilities feel that they can use accessible spaces on campus without being challenged because of their disability being invisible. And many students or staff may also choose to wear a sunflower lanyard in order to identify that they do have an invisible disability. Now, our chemistry community of undergraduates, postgraduates and staff is incredibly diverse, and I myself was supported by the previous disability officer during my undergraduate studies, and that made a huge difference to me when I was doing my chemistry degree and postgraduate degree. Now, every year we've got successful graduates in chemistry who have lived experience of disability, and this can be a whole range of things, from visual impairments and hearing impairments to learning difficulties such as dyslexia or dyspraxia, to chronic pain, autism, mental ill health, agoraphobia, anxiety. There are students and staff who have a wide variety of lived experience of disability. So what is disability? Well, legally, you are disabled if you have a physical or mental impairment, and that impairment has a substantial long-term adverse effect on your ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities. However, many people find this definition focuses on the impairment and find it to be unhelpful, and instead adopt a more positive model. And the most common model adopted is the social model of disability. So this focuses on the societal barriers as being disabling rather than the individual. It states clearly that the individual is not the problem. The sort of societal barriers that are negatively impacting on the person with disability are the environment. So, for example, inaccessible working conditions, such as buildings that don't have ramps, in terms of documents being used in inaccessible formats, discriminating attitudes, where people may have ideas of what an individual with disabilities is capable of, where organisations are inflexible and procedures or practices can be discriminating. While we're talking about vocabulary and language, it's important to highlight that the term disability itself is divisive. So there are many people who are living with an impairment where under the Equality Act they would be defined as disabled, who don't personally identify as being disabled or who do not agree with the language of disability. For them it may be a derogatory term or a term that has been used to make them feel othered. There are many people who find the word disability to be very useful in opening up doors, in moving barriers, and helping them to live the life that they want to, in the way that they want to. And there are other people who find disability, they're very proud of their disability, and that is a very important part and valued part of their identity. So there are all different attitudes towards language around disability. While we're talking about language around disability, you may notice that sometimes people use person first language and sometimes people use identity first language. And there are a lot of very valid reasons why people choose either of these. The most important thing is that each individual person with disability is allowed to choose and define the language that they use to describe themselves and other people use to describe them. Ableism is the intentional or unintentional discrimination or oppression of individuals with disabilities. An individual could be ableist, or it may be an ableist structure or society. So what are we going to talk about now that we've got the language sorted? So I'm going to tell you a bit about one of my role models, a very brief mention of some important legislation. I'm going to talk about what our responsibilities are and some of the disability inclusive policies we have here at York. I'm going to finish with some useful resources so you can go away and learn more. So to start off with scientists with disabilities, there are so many people I could talk about and so many people who have had an influence on me and changed my expectations of myself and of others and of what is possible. I'm going to focus today on Wanda Diaz-Merced. Wanda is a blind astronomer, and in this photo on the left, you can see she's wearing a pair of headphones. Now, she studies gamma ray bursts, which are emitted at very high energy events, such as supernovas. And you may be thinking, astronomy, you're often instantly thinking about telescopes, for example. Well, Wanda developed a technique so that she could listen to the stars and the universe as opposed to using telescopes and looking directly at the data in visualizations, for example. And I'm just going to play you an example of this so you can have a go yourself.
The most energetic events ever measured by astronomers carry the name gamma ray burst because we observe them as bursts or explosions, most strongly measured as gamma ray light. A star like the one in our story that became a magnetar is detected as a gamma ray burst during the most energetic portion of the explosion. Yet, even though gamma ray bursts are the strongest events ever measured by astronomers, we cannot see them with our naked eye. We rely on other methods in order to study this gamma ray light. We cannot see them with our naked eye. We can only see an itty-bitty tiny portion of the electromagnetic spectrum that we call visible light. And beyond that, we rely on other methods. Yet as astronomers, we study a wider range of light, and we depend on other methods to do that. On the screen, it may look like this. You're seeing a plot. That is a light curve. It's a plot of intensity of light over time. It is a gamma ray light curve. Sighted astronomers depend on this kind of plot in order to interpret how this light intensity changes over time. On the left, you will be seeing the light intensity without a burst. And on the right, you will be seeing the light intensity with the burst. Early during my career, I could also see this kind of plot. But then I lost my sight. I completely lost my sight because of extended illness. And with it, I lost the opportunity to see this plot and the opportunity to do my physics. It was a very strong transition for me in many ways. And professionally, it left me without a way to do my science. I longed to access and scrutinize this energetic light and figure out the astrophysical cause. I wanted to experience the specious wonder, the excitement, the joy produced by the detection of such a titanic celestial event. I thought long and hard about it when I suddenly realized that all a light curve is a table of numbers converted into a visual plot. So along with my collaborators, we worked really hard and we translated the numbers into sound. I achieved access to the data, and today I'm able to do physics at the level of the best astronomer using sound. And what people have been able to do, mainly visually, for hundreds of years, now I do it using sound. Listening to these gamma ray bursts that you're seeing on the, thank you, that you're seeing on the screen, brought something to the ear beyond the obvious burst. Now I'm going to play the burst for you. It's not music, it's sound. This is scientific data converted into sound, and it's mapped in pitch. The process is called sonification.
Just at the end there, you heard Wanda say about how listening to the data brought something to the ear that was special. And she's been quoted as saying, people often ask, how do you do it? They're used to people just looking at the stars, but sound can make something clear when it's not something clear to the human eye. So this technique of sonification has enabled analysis and identification that wasn't possible previously. Now, if you want to learn more, in the resources section, I've included a link to Wanda's amazing TED Talk, and I really, really recommend it. So, a bit of a segue into legislation then. Okay, so that wasn't particularly smooth, but it's important that we highlight that individuals with disabilities are protected from discrimination under the Equality Act 2010. And there are specific responsibilities for places of education like universities, workplaces, and police. However, even though this law states that it is illegal to discriminate against someone on the basis of disability, individuals with disabilities are still facing discrimination in their everyday lives and in the workplace today. What are our legal duties? What do universities have to do? So they have a legal duty to anticipate needs, not just make adjustments when requested, but anticipate needs. They must make reasonable adjustments and eliminate discrimination. So what support is available to facilitate this? Well, we have disability services, which are a trained team of disability practitioners who meet with students. They discuss their individual circumstances, and together they prepare a student support plan with recommended adaptations for their learning, which are then sent to the individual departments. And the career service also have trained staff who can talk about disability relevant topics such as disclosure to future employers and making sure that interview practices and application processes such as assessment centres, for example, are accessible and inclusive. So what are we doing here in the department? Well, we put in place these individual recommendations, we adopt inclusive teaching practices, and we encourage a culture of inclusion where students and staff with disabilities are valued. Now, how do we do that? So every department has a disability officer. They may be called a rep or a contact. I'm the disability contact here in the Department of Chemistry, and we're someone that individuals with disability can come to and talk about their situation, ask for advice, give us advice, and also for them to raise awareness of issues that are affecting them or that they're concerned about. We also raise awareness of disabilities and also inclusive teaching and accessible teaching practices, sharing good practice at teaching fora, for example, or workshops around the university or at other universities. And we have flexible and supportive policies for staff, such as flexible working hours and part-time working policies as well. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I'd love to just talk for ages and ages with you about disability. But you can go away now and find out a bit more. So there's some resources on the VLE that I just want to highlight. So there's the TED Talk I already mentioned by Wanda Diaz-Merced, which I really recommend. Stella Young is a disability rights campaigner who has also given a TED Talk that I would recommend. I'm Not Your Inspiration, thank you very much. It's a very funny and eye-opening talk, which will give you a lot more information about ableism. There's also a video from Disability Services introducing some of the staff there and some of the support that they provide. And Disability Rights UK have fantastic fact sheets, and I've included one here on information for disabled students. The Royal Society as well have a series celebrating disabled scientists as well that might be of interest to you. I want to finish off by setting you some homework, some questions to think about. Consider whether you've ever heard or used ableist language. What was that language? What could the effect of that language be? In what ways is your environment designed to the benefit or detriment of your needs? And finally, what changes can create a more inclusive society? Okay, thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.